Recently, I heard it said that a good life is a product of having multiple good days stacked back to back over days and weeks and months and years. And that is what produces a good life. But what happens when you're trying to build a good life, intentionally trying, but those days fall apart? Stuff comes up. You get sick. You get distracted. You get tired. You get unmotivated. You're a human. If you're not continually stacking these good days, does that mean that you don't have a good life? And this brings me back to yesterday when I was about to lose my mind over recording an Instagram reel. I woke up with a mantra in my head that a good life is stacked good days back to back. I was going to have a good day. I had my workouts planned. I knew what I was going to be recording and posting. I had everything planned to a T. And so whenever I went outside to record a reel that I was planning to make, and the wind came, and the rain came, and the mood that I wanted with the clouds went away for the first time. For that 5-minute window, I walked outside. It was sunny, and I didn't want it to be sunny. I got really frustrated. I got so frustrated by that. And the irony was that the reel I was trying to record was about letting go of outcomes. And here I was freaking out because the outcome of me stepping outside to film didn't go how I wanted it to. My day started to fall apart because of this small inconvenience, because the outcome of this one thing during my day didn't go how I wanted it to. A good day started to fall apart. So does that mean that me having a good life was falling apart too? Welcome back to the One Audacious Move podcast. My name's Stanton Giles. Thanks for joining me again. And there's this quote by Joe Rogan. You already heard me kind of briefly mention it here. I came across it on Instagram a little bit ago. It really resonated with me at the time. I actually shared this quote with my wife, and it didn't quite resonate with her the same. And it's probably a good thing, as you're probably starting to notice as I go through this episode. But it was one that I woke up to yesterday morning as a mantra for my day. And basically the quote was, a good life is built by stacking good days back to back. That's something that Joe Rogan said on one of his podcasts, and it really resonated with me. I was like, you know what? I'm always having these sporadic random good days. Like sometimes I'll have this high of accomplishment that I did a ton during this day, and then I'll have these massive lows on other days. They see sporadic good days. But what if I could stack these good days back to back to back to back? Now there's the good life that I want. That sounds great. So I really latched on to this quote by Joe Rogan. It's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's about winning the day. I want to win the day. If I can lay my head on that pillow at night and have done everything that I wanted to do, that's a win. And if I can stack those back to back, I'm probably going to be unstoppable. But what happens when that day doesn't go your way? Does that mean that you're losing? And that's kind of what I really want to dive into today. Does that mean that you lose? And furthermore, is it true that a good life is a bunch of good days stacked back to back? And that's what I want to talk about today. What is a good life and how can we achieve it? But before diving further into that, I want to go back to my day yesterday and how I had planned it out. I started this thing in my life. I called it Project 145. And I'm going to look over at my whiteboard here because there's about 145 check boxes on that whiteboard right now. And it is a call to myself to make 145 pieces of content between basically a week ago and the end of the year. So it's about 10 weeks or so between then and the end of the year. And that's across about 4 different platforms. So my podcast, Instagram, posting on YouTube, Spotify, all of that. The event that me and my friend Boomer host, the Alignment Experience, me running across Iceland. There's a page that I want to start making more content with. And then Rome, my wedding videography education page. And I have this big plan of posting, making a lot of content. That's what I'm doing with the last 10 weeks of my work schedule. I don't have a lot going on. I got a busy start to next year. I have weddings on the books. I know where my money is coming from next year. The contracts are in. And so let's buckle down on making content and growing my online presence, my online audience with these things. And so I buckle down, and here comes this Joe Rogan quote of good days stacked back to back. And I really latched on that because there's been so many pipe dreams of mine of creating content, of getting into a flow, of sticking to what I say I'm going to do, to be disciplined, to be consistent. I actually have a little note here. I think I heard Alex Hormozi recently say that discipline is how many times you can do something in a row without reward. How many times can you do something in a row without reward? It's also something else that resonated with me. Obviously, I wrote it down on a little sticky note next to my desk, but stack that with this quote from Joe Rogan, two macho men in this, hustle culture world that we live in, especially being on social media. And I'm like bursting out the gates on a Monday morning with like, I'm going to win the day. I'm going to win the day. I'm going to have a good day. And so I wake up feeling amazing. I make a really bomb reel for the alignment experience. I copy the same format, do it from my wedding education platform, get over to making a reel that I was going to be shooting out in these Adirondack chairs out in my backyard. It's fall right now here in Colorado. Next to the chickens with my dog is going to be like a me talking to ChatGPT reel. And I get out there. I saw something on Instagram that inspired me to do this, and it was this cloudy, moody day, and that's what I wanted. And I went out there. It was cloudy, moody, perfect everything. And then right as I get out there, the sun burst open, and it's crazy how much that little thing affected me. Sometimes it makes me feel like I'm losing my mind, how quickly a tiny thing can throw off my entire day. I remember I walked back inside feeling completely defeated by that whole experience and just really frustrated. The sun was out, everything was ruined, but I had the footage on my camera, and I ended up going downstairs and I put it on my computer and I started editing this reel. And as I edited it together, I noticed that there's really nothing wrong with this reel. It actually was really beautiful the more I looked at it. And I had this like beautiful sunlight backlighting me. If you know anything about photography or videography, backlight is really beautiful. And the more I looked at it, it was just different than the outcome that I wanted to have for this reel. So I ended up just going with it. I didn't have the mental fortitude to go back out there and record it later whenever it was the way I wanted. And I kind of wanted to get this out before 5 p.m. so I could check it off my little Project 145 whiteboard. And as I was editing this together, I was listening to the words that I had ChatGPT saying in this reel. And it was basically like a mini conversation between me and ChatGPT. And I asked Chat, what's one truth about life that humans are scared to admit? And this is what ChatGPT said in that reel that I had it read as I was recording. It said that almost everything humans want, peace, purpose, love, confidence, can't be achieved by getting more, only by letting go. People cling to control, possessions, identities, and timelines, believing that if they just add one more thing, one more achievement, one more person, one more breakthrough, they'll finally feel complete. But life doesn't reward accumulation. It rewards surrender. The truth most people avoid is that peace isn't found when everything goes right. It's found when they stop needing it to. And I exported this reel, and I put some music underneath it. And I remember I cried after I made it. Not like bawling my eyes out. You know what it's like. You get emotionally stirred, lump in your throat, teary-eyed, because something resonates with you. And this is what resonated with me in that moment. And I realized I was called out by the very thing I was walking outside to make a reel about. I was getting really upset about the outcome. And here I am trying to find satisfaction and success in the outcome, in the timeline, in putting my identity in this and putting my control into this is how I will win the day. But that's not where my peace was going to come from. Because at the end of the day, a good life is mental peace, right? Like all the success in the world means nothing if you don't have mental peace. Mental peace is wildly important. So on one extreme, you have this Joe Rogan quote. A good life is built by stacking good days back to back. And then you have this response from ChatGPT. That's a truth about life that humans are scared to admit. And man, am I scared to admit that sometimes. And I wake up today, the day after this, and I'm still kind of thrown off from that entire day of feeling exhausted from working all day, amidst feeling frustrated, amidst not getting very many likes on these posts that I poured hours into, amidst wondering if I'm seen, if I'm known, all these ego-driven things. And I'm very humbled by the truth that AI, which is an accumulation of, it's a language model. It's learns from humans. And so it's an accumulation of our own observations about ourselves too. It just puts it into a nice succinct format for us. And coming face to face with that yesterday, it's something that, as you guys know, this podcast is basically a therapy session for myself to verbalize these things that are important to me, that are worth questioning. What is a good life? How do we achieve that? And so this podcast is a vehicle for me just as much as it is for you to mentally stir things in our head, because we grow from thinking about things. If you're not thinking about something, you're never going to move into a situation where you elevate yourself from where you currently are. We first need to stop and think about where we are, where we're wanting to go, and how we're going to get there, and adjust how we're trying to get there if something feels off within us. This whole human experience is just this winding path of getting off course and then coming back to what feels aligned to us, and then veering off this way and then realizing, well, that's not leading to mental peace, and then getting distracted this way and thinking, it's the illusion of mental peace, and then getting back on track. And we're just we're going back and forth. We're in this canoe going down this river back and forth, trying to figure out how to live a good life. And so what is the reminder hidden between Joe Rogan's quote and ChatGPT? Because often it's not white, it's not black, it's often gray. Let's dive further in. I got some notes written over here on my computer, a few things that I want to go through. And the first one is this: the phrase stacking good days back to back. It sounds really simple in theory, but baked inside of that is an assumption. It's that a good life equals your productivity and your progress and your satisfaction repeated over and over and over. That every day should be one, quote unquote, productivity, progress, satisfaction. In order for me to have a good life based off that first assumption, that stacking good days back to back will lead to a good life, I must be productive every day. I must move forward every day, and I must feel satisfied at the end of every day. Now, how realistic do you think it is for us to achieve that, to always be productive, to always make progress, and to always be satisfied? Sounds impossible to me, especially knowing my life and how things come up and how people need me and I need people and I need rest and I need food and I need sunlight and I need a break sometimes. I have big dreams, but man, I'm a human amidst trying to pursue these big things. And so this idea of pursuing these good days back to back, I just feel like real life isn't like that. Because what I'm learning is that some of my most meaningful days in my life aren't the ones that I feel like I won. Let me say that again. The most meaningful days in my life aren't always the ones that I feel like I won. It's the days that I look back on in retrospect, and I'm thankful for them because they taught me a lesson. And typically the days that I'm winning are only fueling my ego, and I'm doing them out of some anxiety-ridden fuel that if I don't do that, I'm going to be disappointed in myself. But when I'm a real human and I let myself go through my day and do my best, but still mess up, those are honest days. I think I want honest days more than good days. Is that something that maybe we can agree on? That, of course, I want good days, but this idea of stacking them back to back is incredibly impossible for us to do as humans. And amidst these honest days, the days where we feel lost or confused, we have heartbreak over something, maybe we're resting or maybe we're surrendering, we later realize that those are the days that shape you further into who you are. Those are the days that I'm talking about. We veer off of the course going left or right, and we have to come back to a more aligned version of ourselves. Those are the days that realign us. And so those honest days, those days that we didn't win, are the course correction we need. It's the course correction I need in my life in order to get back to what is a good life. And so a good life, I believe, Joe Rogan's wrong. It's not good days stacked back to back. It's honest days stacked back to back, because the honest days are the course correction we need to get back on track. This is something really important for me to realize as someone with a high achiever mindset, that I'm going to have good days, even though I have this idealistic version of myself that is on the level of Alex Hormozy or Gary Vee or whatever it might be, and that I deserve to get to this thing. And the only way to get there is through grinding my ass off and getting to the finish line by being completely productive with every second of my day and moving forward. And that's the only way for me to be satisfied. That is an incredibly toxic way for me to continue going through life. And I'm 33 years old. I've been stuck in this way of moving through life for the last few years, maybe even a little bit longer, ever since I quit my day job and got into the entrepreneurial world. But this is something that's really important that I need to start applying to my life, and I hope that you can too, to give yourself grace as you move through this life. If you listened last week, I wrote a poem about my last year, and I'm learning to give myself grace. And so yesterday was an honest day for me. I'm giving myself grace retroactively as I look back on that day, because yesterday was a course correction from this hustle culture, workload, anxiety-driven life that I'm putting on myself. It's a course correction today to where I'm talking about it on this podcast. Number two, first one was looking at the phrase stacking good days back to back. What does that mean? I don't think that's what we want. It's more so we want to stack honest days back to back. There's going to be some good ones in there. There's going to be some bad ones, but we want to have honest days. We want to have human days. We want to have days where we can look back at them and give ourselves grace because we're trying our best in life. And so as we continue analyzing the gray between this Joe Rogan quote and the ChatGPT one, the second point I want to make is that maybe the problem isn't in the philosophy. Maybe it's in our definition inherently of what comes to our mind when we think of the word good. You know, we have a definition for any word that we say in our mind most of the time, unless you're just throwing vocabulary out that you don't know the meaning to. But a lot of times when we think of the word good, we think of it as being easy, or maybe it means productive. Maybe it means smooth. Maybe it means feeling happy. What's a good day? Is that a happy day? Is that a smooth day? Everything went right? Is it a productive day? Is that an easy day? But what if we were able to flip what good meant? Maybe the definition that the world has given us, maybe the way that Joe Rogan meant it, maybe the way we're interpreting it is wrong. But what if good could also mean, what if good actually meant you went outside to make a reel and it didn't go the way that you wanted it to, but you went with it anyway and you accepted that outcome? What if you overcame that? What if good meant you faced something uncomfortable and you didn't run? What if a good day meant that you told the truth instead of pretending with something? What if it meant that you slowed down and enjoyed a sunset instead of hurrying through your day? Good is a very subjective word, and we all have different goals in our life. And so when I think about good, sometimes whenever I come from this hustle culture, high achieving mindset, sometimes I can get tricked into thinking it's all about the productivity and what I'm getting done. But what if good was more about how I conducted myself as a human, how honestly I can move through that day? What if I was just a good human during that day? What if I walked around with presence and acceptance, treating people well, loving people well, being okay with the reality that's unfolding in front of me, and not trying to put a stipulation on what the outcome of the present moment must be in order to fulfill what I said it was going to be at the beginning of the day? I would really love to learn that a good day is about adjusting to the reality that is unfolding in front of me and accepting that as okay. Of course, this is getting into stoicism, stoic philosophy of acceptance as we move through life, which I believe is a beautiful mindset, one that I'm trying to mirror the more and more that I go through life. And I think that stoic philosophy of acceptance leads really well into the third thing I want to talk about, and it's the trap of control versus surrender. And so, when we say win the day, I think sometimes that can turn life into some sort of scorecard. It's a 1 and 0. Did I win the day or did I not? But in looking at life that way and looking at life through this scorecard-esque mentality, again, we're putting control over what is happening in the present moment instead of just accepting what it is. And to accept what is happening now is called being present. And there's a lot of philosophies out there in this world that say that being present is the most straight and narrow way to finding mental peace in this life. So maybe there's a deeper peace in saying, I did my best and I stayed aligned today with the reality that was unfolding in front of me. Even if the weather didn't cooperate, even if my thoughts didn't cooperate or my emotions, I did my best. In my eyes, that's a different kind of winning and a type of winning that I would like to incorporate more into my life going forward. And so in conclusion, what is a good life and how do we achieve it? Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to hand the answer to you on a silver platter during this podcast episode because A, this is one of the most existential, most studied things that has ever been looked into in the existence of humanity. And B, I'm still trying to figure it out too. I don't know if I'll ever figure it out. But from what I've taken notes on as I was preparing this podcast, this is how I would like to summarize it after kind of the up and down of today versus yesterday and the feelings of control and surrendering, of acceptance versus, winning the day with my productivity and my progress. To me, a good life might not be a perfect stack of good days. It might be more of a collection of honest, fully lived moments like joy or pain or boredom or awe, all strung together by being aware and intentional. And maybe a good life isn't about mastering and sculpting every single day to our will. And perhaps it's more about meeting every day with the best of ourselves to the best of our ability. Now, all of this to say, I do have big goals and big dreams, but I'm not just going to walk into the day in this zen-like state and just accept everything that happens as I go through this day. I have goals and dreams that I believe that are put in me for a reason. I'm called toward, I'm pulled toward as I go through this life. And so I feel like I must do them, but maybe the timeline by which I must do them doesn't always align with what reality is going to let unfold in this world in front of me. And so Project 145, I have a little saying at the bottom that says, you can suck, you just can't skip. And so maybe a reel won't go the way that I want it to go when I'm making that content, but that's okay because that was the hand that I was dealt, and I did my best with that day, with that piece of content, with the hand that I was dealt. So what's something in your life that you try to control that oftentimes you find yourself at the beginning of the day putting a lot of importance on this being the linchpin of you getting through your day and feeling like you had a good day or you won the day or you can finally, rest easy at night and enjoy dinner or beer or time with friends because you did this thing? Is there a reframe that after listening to this episode that you could potentially put into practice today over the course of the next week or put into practice over the course of your life that'll help take the pressure off of what you must do in order to have a good life? That'll help you loosen the grip on what must happen in order for you to live a good, peace-filled, fulfilled life. Because the more we loosen the grip on what must happen, that gives us the mental peace of being able to accept what will happen in this beautiful reality that we call life. So thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of One Audacious Move. I'm Stanton Giles, and if you're enjoying listening to this podcast, you were driving to work or you're on a run or you're in your office listening to this, if you know me through the filmmaking community, I would really appreciate if you'd give this podcast a follow, give it a 5-star review, or send this to somebody that you know. I definitely am putting a lot of work into this thing, and it's hard to sit down week after week and record these things, but I am really passionate about this idea of audacity in our life, because audacity isn't always about speeding up and doing the next thing. Sometimes it's the audacity to course correct and have an honest day. I love making these podcast episodes. I love the course that this podcast is taking, and I really appreciate you listening as always. I'll see you next week.